Hi, my name is Andrew Keister, and today I'd like to walk you through my original music and the interactive implementation of it into the game of Tetris. Now, let's face it, Tetris has been around for a long time, so I thought if we're going to do a new version of it, let's bring something unique to the game. And my approach to that is the player is going to create the music as they play the game. The music will start out very basic, bare bones progression, and as they clear rows, it builds, adding elements and excitement. Additionally, as the player moves the shapes and rotates them, the player is actually creating the melody on the fly. And so every time you play the game, it's unique, it's different, and it's highly interactive. So let's take a look at it.
The music is inspired by the era in which the game was originally created. You'll hear heavy 80s influences throughout, with some modern production layered on top. This menu segment is designed to build tension as we get ready for the game to begin. As the game starts, we'll hear a stripped-down version of the music, with just the keyboard progressions and some sound design elements on top of that. As I'm moving my piece, I'm creating this melody on the fly. And I noticed almost right away that I would change when I would move or rotate these pieces so that I could shape the melody in a way that was pleasing to me. And as we fill in rows with the shapes and clear the lines, our score increases, and over time, the music will start to assemble into a fuller version of itself. At 2 lines cleared, we're going to start hearing the bass establish itself on top of the keyboard progression and the melody that we're crafting. We've moved into a new music segment here. And now we've cleared 4 lines and we can hear the bass fully established. At 5 lines, we hear the drums being established. Six lines cleared, the drums are increased in level. And at 7 lines, they're at their full level. Now we start to hear a counter melody coming in on this ambient guitar line that works quite nicely with the melody we're creating on the fly by moving the game shapes. Okay, at 10 lines clear, we've finished stage 1. We're moving into stage 2. We have a new voice for our melody that we're still generating with our movement. And the music system has reset, and we're back to just the harmonic progressions at the moment. As we continue to increase our score by eliminating rows and getting our line count higher, we'll start to build the music back. 12 lines cleared, we're starting to hear the bass come in. Bass is fully established, drums are entering. We're 16 lines cleared. We're starting to hear a little bit of that guitar counter melody. 20 lines, we finished stage 2. We're on to stage 3. Same rules apply here. We've got a new voice for our melody, and the music system has reset to just the harmonic progression. Lines, we're getting near our end goal of 30 lines cleared. And at 30 lines cleared, we've won the demo version of this game. Okay, let's take a look at the implementation. Tetris is built in Unity, and we have Wise connected as middleware for the audio implementation. In Wise, if we look at the interactive music hierarchy, default work unit, there's a game switch container that has all of our music to be implemented. We see on the first level, there's an additional switch which controls most of the gameplay music. And then we have some additional stinger elements. We have the menu music. We have gameplay start, gameplay pause, pause release, win and lose stingers, and some transition segments moving between the stages. Then if I expand this gameplay music stage switch single level, we see the interactive hierarchy for the music in the actual gameplay. So the game is broken up into 3 stages, and each stage has multiple musical sections. There's a playlist for each stage, and in those playlists we have different sections. They're generally between 8 and 16 bars, although the intro at the beginning of the game is a little shorter. And they're put in the playlist in a sequence so that it will play continuously, but give us a little variation as the player, if they stay on the stage for a lengthy period of time. In addition to the stage playlists, we have stingers here that go with the clear row. And then we have segments that deal with the movement of the game pieces, of the shapes, left, right, and rotate. And these are the items that generate the melody as the player plays. Let's go back and look at stage 1, playlist. And we see inside here the 3 different stems. I do have a lengthy file naming system. Maybe this is a good diversion at this point. My file naming system is designed to make it very easy to know what you're looking at and when you're looking at it. So we have a class, which these are all music. We have a numerical ID, which is unique. No 2 files can share the same ID. A project flag, a creator flag if you have multiple people working on it. The section of music in this instance, the stem name, a revision marker. And then for each one, we include tempo, meter, the length of the body, the length of the tail, and any pickup. And that generates a file name automatically for us here. And you can see it's quite long, but as we get into the implementation and we look at these, there's no question about what we're looking at. I know this piece is at 115. I know it's in 4/4. It's 12 measures with a tail of 2 measures and no pickup. I find that invaluable when programming. It just helps keep track of all the assets. In this game, we started at a single tempo and we eventually increased the tempo with each stem. and going back and verifying that segments and playlists were set to correct tempos was much easier, tracking all that information because we could see in the files that everything was matched in the file name, I should say. So we see in stage 1 in verse 1, and you'll see I've named my musical segments kind of in classic form. This segment is built of 3 elements, 3 stems: drums, bass, and keyboards and sound design elements. These are separate because we address them individually. Keyboards and sound design elements were originally multiple stems, but as we didn't need to control them uniquely inside the game, I went back and rebounced them into a single one to decrease the load on the system in terms of the number of files it's playing. Bass and drums both have real-time parameter controls that are affecting the voice volume as the player is playing the game. So what we see happening here is at the start of the game, the voice volume for the bass is -200 or off. And then as the player progresses and clears lines in the game, once they reach after they've cleared 2 lines, the voice volume of the bass comes up to -6, and then at 3 lines, it's at 0 dB. It's at the intended level. And then in the drums, we will see a different curve here. So it's off to up to 4 lines having been cleared, and then starts adding in at 5, it's -12 dB. At 6, it's -6 dB roughly. And then at 7 lines, it's established at the full volume. And we can demo the impact of this if I just set my parameters. So there, we're only hearing the keyboards and sound design layer. Because our lines cleared parameter is at 0, the voice volume of both the bass and the drums is off. And now I'll play again and slowly bring that up. There's the bass added in at 3 lines cleared, excuse me. At 5 lines cleared, the drum starts adding in. And we've gotten through the 12 measures of that. I'll just play it again. So that's at 6. And then by 8, this is the full original mix. This is how the song was written. Now, of course, there's no melody at this point, which would be a glaring omission if not for the fact that the player was creating the melody. The music develops as we get into what in the classic form would be the chorus. We see this has 4 elements. It has the drums, the bass, and the keyboards. This is a combination layer of keyboards, guitars, and sound designs. And again, those were all elements that didn't need to be addressed individually. And then we also see a melodic layer for the first time here. And this functions essentially as a counter melody to the melodic phrase that the player is creating with their movements. These have the same levels for the parameter control. So we see the drums follows that same curve. The bass follows the same curve. And then the melodic point is off at layer 5, -12 at lines cleared 6. Excuse me, I said layer before. 7 lines cleared takes us to -6, and it's at unity at, get this out of my way so I could click on it, at 8 lines cleared. So let's take a listen to that. Just a note on the production of this music, you can hear in these in the keyboard part especially some pumping that's being caused by a bus compressor being triggered by the drums. When I wrote this music and I mixed it originally, I didn't mix it in stems. I just made a stereo mix as one does. And part of that mix was some shaping with a bus compressor on the end stage, and this presented a problem in breaking it into all these stems that we needed to have access to give the game the interactive control of the music. And so we went through and on each of the output buses for these stems added that same bus compression, and then had to do a fairly sophisticated side chaining structure so that each individual bus is triggering that bus compressor based off the stereo master bus compressor. And so you can hear that if we are listening to the keyboards, particularly without the drums playing, you'll hear the pumping of that. I think that gives a nice little pulse to the music, and it's telling us that there's something yet to come, that something is missing from it. So let's add these elements in. One line cleared, 2 lines cleared. We hear the bass coming in. 3, the bass is established. 4, 5. And we're gonna run out. The chorus is broken into front and back, so that's the front 8 of the chorus. I'll play that again. We'll keep the levels going up. 6, 7, 8. So we can hear that almost ambient guitar giving us some nice melodic motion, but it also functions well as a counter melody when the player is moving pieces. The back half of that chorus, the back 8, functions the same. It's broken up the same. We can play it here. You hear those tails, these post-exit point regions, which I'm referring to as a tail, are really important and wise to put these segments together and not have them sound like they're separate little pieces. So then those 4 segments make up the playlist for stage 1. There were some additional items that you can see I have turned off here that didn't make it into the final cut. So if we look at the music playlist, we can see how this is played. Now, I apologize. Before I was talking about the chorus, the front 8 and the back 8. And actually, I didn't do that here. I wanted to save the back 8 for stage 2. And so what we have is the front 8 with an alternate melody on it. So it's the same chord progression, but that ambient guitar melodic layer has an alternate. The first one is an open phrasing and the second one is closed. So we can see the sequence is set to loop infinitely. If the player stays in the game in this stage for however long they stay, this will simply repeat. We have the intro section, stage 1, verse 1, chorus 1 front, and then chorus 1 front, alternate melody. Verse 1, this all just repeats. And the only reason why I'm just repeating those over and over again rather than letting it loop is I don't want to go back to the intro section. The intro is somewhat unique and it's shorter. So that's not something I want to hit over and over again. I essentially really only want them to hear that one time. But if they play it, if they stay in the stage for an awful long time, that can add some nice variety to it. After the player clears 10 rows, then they will move to stage 2 of the game. Stage 2 is broken up the same way. We just have some different melodic notions. We have to clear higher levels here because we wouldn't hear this until we're at 10. So this bass will start to add in at 12. Right, so that's the full version. So that's all relatively familiar. We will hear for the first time the back half of the chorus. Here's the back 8. There's different voicings in this chorus. The guitars change. But the basic concept of how the elements are added as the player progresses through this stage remain the same. We're just dealing with the numbers we had before, plus 10, because we're in the second stage. So we see the bass starting to move. First thing we hear it would be at 12. And the drums we wouldn't start to hear until 15, and they're fully established at 17. We have a bridge new section of music that's introduced in stage 2. This is nice to add variety. It's a whole new drum sound, whole new feel. We're carrying some of the guitars from chorus 2 into it, but using them in a unique manner. And then there's a back half to that. The pickup here. There's no melodic element in the front bridge. I like it exposed, with just kind of raw with those guitars. And so the stage 2 playlist functions very similar to how stage 1 does, and we can see the elements here as they are progressed through, and then the whole sequence will loop. And stage 3 is the same concept, just expanded further. We have another verse that strips some elements out. We have a breakdown chorus. Again, we're just changing little parts to add variety as the music progresses. And if we look at the playlist, we can see the same basic structure here. This one doesn't have anything too unique, so it can be a relatively short list that goes back and loops. Stage 3, verse 3 is 12 measures long, and then each of these is an additional 8 measures of music, each additional segment. So those are the basics of the music that's laying under it. And then the next item, and what was the most challenging implementation, is the player-generated melody. The concept for this was that the player was going to create the melody as they moved their pieces, left, right, or rotated, right? Moved the game shapes. But the way the hooks are set up between Unity and Wise meant we could only trigger a segment to fire the sound. We could not trigger a playlist, and that's just down to how the original programming was done in the interconnection between the two, and it wasn't something that we could get at and change. So we had to figure out a way to make that work. So what I did was I created a segment with this one has nine short musical notes that are set up in a random system so that each time it plays, it's going to play one of these. And I will play some of that for you now. And so as the player is moving, and in stage 1 here, we have some slight variations in the pitches and the duration of those pitches between the move shape left, move shape right, and flip shape segments. All of those items together form to create an aleatoric, randomly created melody that is unique every time you play the game. It's never repeated. And so what's really enjoyable for me is I find as I'm playing the game, it alters when I want to move my pieces and how much I want to move my I'm saying pieces, but I mean shapes, because I'm trying to create a melody on the fly as I'm doing that. Because this is random, we had to double up on certain pitches that were important to us. So tonic and the fifth are repeated a couple times, since those will work the best across the whole harmonic map of the song. I was a little careful in how everything was laid out so that all the scale degrees are workable as melodic pitches. They're all either chord tones or available tensions. There's nothing that's a harmonic avoid note. So while I don't have control over which pitch plays it at each moment in time, referencing the harmonic map of the song, we've structured it in such a way that it's always going to work. We have different voicings, and the scale is the same in stage 2. So that gives some variety into stage 2. And the same thing is true in stage 3. This is a different harmonic map, and we actually needed, I think there are 18 or 19 voices in here to make that work. This one is a little fun. There's a little more tension in it. Relies a little heavier on hitting that 7th degree, which is it plays quite nicely, I think. And so those are the fundamentals behind the system to generate those melodies on the fly by the player. If we go and look at the transitions in the gameplay switch, we can see where transition segments are used. If we're moving from the stage 1 playlist to the stage 2 playlist, we're going to play this turnaround 118 segment. It's named for the tempo that it's arriving at when we get there. And I'll just play it for you. So it's just a little 2-bar phrase to function between the two, since we could exit at pretty much any point in the music. We're not precious about where we exit the music. We want to do it on a musical beat, but I'm not needing to complete a phrase or a measure even. And that turnaround is key to making that work. And then as we move from 2 to 3, we see the same thing, but at the tempo of the new segment. And then there are just a couple other elements that are in there. We have win the game. We have lose the game. Little harmonic minor to really make you feel the loss. And then we have some really quick pause and release. And that is the implementation of the interactive music into the Tetris game. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative.